Smouldering MS and progression are two terms that go hand in hand, but why is it that people with MS and neurologists seem reticent to discuss progression from the very start of diagnosis?
Dr. Gnanapavan, I'm going to ask you some arguably more difficult questions, and this plays to some of my pet peeves. If somebody is diagnosed with MS, what do you think they should be told? Because I don't think patients are told what they ought to be told when they're diagnosed.
That depends on the person, ideally, because if you give the whole shebang about MS as you would a medical school lecture, for example, you'll never get the person to be part of
a clinical explanation of it. Yeah. I don't talk to many people where their doctors have spoken to them about what's your life going to be like in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20. You know, essentially you're medicating for some indeterminate point in the future, and we don't know how bad it will or won't be. So therefore you've kind of got to take the nuclear option, in my mind, because of the maybes. I mean, in your experience, do you or your colleagues have discussions with people about future them?
So it's all about discussions on risk. And the problem here is, how do you couch it to that person and understand what their risk limits are? This is what clinicians should be trained to do really well, but unfortunately we're all human beings and it's very difficult to do. Being given a diagnosis of MS in itself is a very difficult thing to take on board. And you need to make sure that their image of MS is not what it was back in the days, say 25 years ago, where it's like, this is your life.
I mean, I was warned off with somebody saying, don't go near the MS Society, who are a great charity, but they're going, it's all wheelchairs and nappies. And that was 30 years ago.
And, you know, the thing here is that's the image which people have about MS. So you need to be quite careful about how you present that information so that you don't get disengagement. You need a person engaged in their care, and then you start talking about, okay, what does this mean to you in terms of having children, in terms of your employment status, in terms of life expectancy and progression. What you don't want is a person not considering any of that just because they're stuck on, I've just been diagnosed with MS.
I'm sitting in front of you and you've diagnosed me with MS, and I've heard and seen and read all these scary things. How do you explain progression? We're talking about smoldering MS, but how do you explain it to me? What does it mean to me?
So progression is the change in your MS from you being able to walk to something where you are not able to walk as well as you used to be, or are finding it difficult to do the tasks you were able to do without thinking in the past. So that I would consider to be a progression in your condition.
So walking and, should we say, for want of a better, intellectual abilities.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, those are the commonest things where people notice that they're getting worse, quite common.
And are these things that I can affect more positively in the future if I am, I know everyone doesn't want to do this, but should we say more aggressive with the treatment options that I go for now? Will they have a better long-term effect on walking?
Yeah, exactly, because that's what years worth of clinical trials and real world data monitoring has shown. You've got to hit this disease hard at the outset and you'll have a better impact on your disease progression in the future.
Please tell us what A, your experiences have been to date, and B, how you would like the conversation to go. Because my line is, I go to bed with MS, I wake up with MS every single day, and my doctor, as much as they care, doesn't have that running through their head every single day. So tell us what you think.
I would add something to that. Yep. I think it's a good idea before you turn up at your consultation just to have a piece of paper with what's important to you, because when you're there in the room itself discussing these things, I'm not saying a whole list because that's not going to be possible to discuss in the time given, but just to have 3 things you want from that consultation, questions which you've been pondering over.
I really appreciate you enduring my opinions on this. So it's thank you so much. Hey guys, if you want some more useful advice on living with MS, subscribe to the Lived Health channel and check out more of their videos.